In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, we'd like to welcome you all to the third episode of the Qazwini Brothers podcast. My name is Sayyid Muhammad Reza Qazwini, and joined with me today is my dear elder brother, Sayyid JawadQazwini. Today we'll be talking about something that we rarely ever discuss on these kinds of platforms, and that'll be veganism.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين. Respected viewers, brothers, sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Like you said, the topic that we have chosen for today is indeed an extremely important topic, and I don't know, I'm sure it's been discussed in the past by other Muslim scholars or by other Muslim activists. However, I feel that this subject has not been given the justice that it deserves. It has not been addressed, and it has not been spoken about as much as it needs, It has not been given the attention that it needs, and therefore I feel like it's a very important topic to be discussed. Today, anywhere you go, all around the world, everybody's talking about this. Through my travels, everybody's asking me about it. So
right.
I'm looking forward to discussing it with you.
Yeah, obviously it's an obsession and a very new lifestyle. It's old, but it's gaining footing recently. We'll be talking about a few new points today. We'll define veganism, first of all. We'll talk about when it became popular. We'll go over the scientific pros and cons of veganism. Then we'll talk about the Islamic view on veganism, and finally we'll talk about our Islamic centers and community centers in respect to veganism. So veganism is basically the diet and philosophy that refrains of human exploitation of animals. So some vegans are strictly dietary vegans. They just refrain from eating anything that has animal products in it. And some are also philosophically vegan as well. So they refrain from using anything that has animal products in it, such as creams, lotions, or if something was used with animal testing, they refrain from using that too. So when was the first time you heard about veganism?
Many years ago, I remember I visited a community and there was a Q&A session, and within the Q&A session this question was asked of me, and I really was not very familiar with that. Not everybody in that Q&A session was also familiar with it, so a lot of people were defining it differently.
Right.
So I went home. I remember I went back to the hotel that same night, and I looked it up. I read a little bit about it, and from that time onwards, this almost comes up in every visitation that I do to different communities around the world.
Mm-hmm.
Is people bring this up and ask about it, and I felt like in the past 2-3 years it's become something very serious, something that is, a lot of people in our community are now.
It's gained a lot of traction.
Definitely.
For sure. I hadn't personally known about veganism until probably 2012. And when I didn't find out about it, I hadn't done that much research. I just heard about it from friends that were vegan. But veganism has been around for centuries. Some cultures and religions are vegetarian, and some take it a step further and they're vegan as well. It's estimated that within the US there's 1.7 million vegans. So there was recently a docuseries I watched on Netflix called Game Changers. And I know when Game Changers came out, everyone was talking about veganism. Like, it was trending on Twitter, on all social media. And this docuseries has got to be the best produced one about veganism so far. They have big names like James Cameron, Arnold Schwarzenegger, the Diaz brothers. So they're basically talking about all the magical properties of veganism in it.
Yeah, I watched this show briefly, and I really like it.
Yeah.
I like it because of several reasons. Because one, I feel like they're interviewing certain people that are basically talking about their results, how they feel. Obviously, we know media can play around with numbers and show things differently, and obviously I don't agree with everything that's on TV,
Right.
Including this particular show.
Mm-hmm.
But I like the fact that they're getting, big, buff, strong men
Right.
and women
Mm-hmm.
that are no longer depending on, having to feed themselves and gain energy off animals.
Yeah.
And they basically, to be honest with you, I felt like they look healthier, they look much healthier, and I don't see why they would lie. All those very important people, all those athletes would lie about how their new diet made them feel. And definitely something that makes you wonder, makes you start, asking yourself questions
Right.
about how much, meat we end up consuming every single day.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them are saying that this can basically, you'll feel results even if you were to skip having any sort of meat product for a single day.
Yeah.
Plant-based diet, nutrition for just one day. The same day you'll start seeing results. For example, I like how they basically went to the firefighters and they said for a whole week, just go ahead and use a plant-based diet.
Right.
And then see how you feel. And then they also did a lot of tests on them.
Correct.
And things look different. I mean, things look much better in many aspects. However, I felt like they are all saying the same thing, as in they're all getting the same results, 100%. And, to me, I think that's just too good to be true.
Right.
How can, even if, all this plant-based lifestyle is really good, it should be something like 7 out of 10, 9 out of 10 at best. But 10 out of 10 just sounds literally impossible, because, there will be certain people and certain bodies and certain physical beings that would basically not be able to cope with, just like, it works on so many people to be on a plant-based diet. At the same time, it won't work on other people. So that's just how I feel. I mean, I'm definitely not a scholar on this topic of veganism.
Yeah.
I have not researched it fully. I've done as much as I could just to prepare for this show, because I felt like we need to talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
We need to give the Islamic perspective. People basically need this platform to discuss such issues. But just between me and you, the way I feel when I don't eat meat and I asked physicians about it, and maybe we'll talk about it in the end of the show. But just pertaining the accuracy of this show, I want to say that, when I don't eat meat for like 3 days, and I'm active, I'm exercising, I'm doing, just the
rigorous
the
activities.
The third day, man, I'm really weak.
Right.
I don't feel like I can do anything. I get very fatigued and tired.
Right.
Versus in the show, you see that everybody who goes vegan
Is that
when
you don't eat red meat, or just animal products in general?
No, it's not. It's when I don't eat red meat, actually. Like, for example, I'm traveling to Europe, I'm doing a tour, or just a vacation. I like traveling, and I've been to many countries. Maybe we'll talk about that one day. So when I travel, like for example, when I would travel to Prague, the day I arrived, was kind of late. So the next day I started after Fajr right away, and just on foot. You have to walk that city.
Yeah.
And I went just before Maghrib to basically pray, and then I just did my Maghrib and Isha, and I
excuse me.
Bless you.
Thank you.
And,
it's not the corona. Don't worry.
and then I did Maghrib and Isha, ate something and went to sleep. But that day I walked about 12 kilometers in one day.
MashaAllah. That's
So
like
if you do
7 miles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So basically, if you keep doing that for 3-4 days, then
You're fatigued.
I feel like my body needs meat, red
Right.
meat, because I can't eat red meat there, obviously. So I have to just eat either fish
Mm-hmm.
or go veggie.
Yeah.
It definitely looks healthier to me. I feel it gets digested much better. Those things I agree with.
Right.
That I feel like my food is being digested better. My food looks healthier, especially if I have to order out in a restaurant. I would rather stay away from meat.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, I'm just telling you that that's how it
you
makes
feel
me feel
personally.
Yeah.
There's obviously pros and cons to both omnivorism, so like consuming meat and plant-based diets, and specifically plant-based diets. There's science behind both of them, but we know that like if a proportion of the population was to become vegan, then there would be a lot of limitations on greenhouse gases. So if livestock were a country, like animals that we consume were a country, they would be the number 3 top exporter of greenhouse gases. So I think we should look at how industrialized meat eating has become. We know in our halal diet, halal dabiha diet, we can't really eat at McDonald's, Burger King, Carl's Jr., these places that have industrial plants that, abuse animals, confine them to small spaces, slaughter them in mechanical ways, stuff that halal dabiha would not agree with. So we know that if there was a proportion of vegans, that the greenhouse gases would go down. So after I've found there's also cons to being a vegan as well, because red meat gives you calcium and certain types of proteins that are broken down within your body, different vitamin B12, vitamin B6, vitamin B3, iron. So for people that have iron deficiency like myself, just like you, I feel weak after a few days of not eating red meat. So if I were to become vegan, I would have to rely on many supplements, and I would have to be very strict and balanced within my vegan diet, so I'm not intaking so much soy. So science perspectives aside, what is the Islamic view on veganism?
So just to discuss the pros and cons, like you mentioned, I think that's a really good place to discuss this topic. It's a good way to get into this discussion. Amongst the pros that I believe in personally, and I feel that it's important for every human being to essentially start changing their ways in order to preserve the life of more animals.
Right.
I feel that animals are being slaughtered every day in very cruel ways. You're right. We as Muslims living in the West, the way that we eat meat or we consume meat is it has to be slaughtered in specific ways, and we all know how halal meat is produced. Much different than the industrial way of consuming meat.
Right.
However, what about Muslim countries that have huge numbers?
Right.
For example, you look at a Muslim country that has 50 million, 100 million, 200 million people,
Right.
Muslims. And they need to consume meat, and they won't be able to just take a sheep or a cow and slaughter it in the very classic way. So they have actually produced the same type of slaughterhouses, and just because they're basically not able to, there's so much demand that they're not able to take their time to basically slaughter it in the classic way, or it's just not economically viable for them to do that. So the same thing is happening in Muslim countries. Animals, I remember when I was traveling several years ago, and I was in a European country, and I got stopped by a group of teenagers that were basically, they had like a very big screen of animals in slaughterhouses being abused, and it was just such a disturbing image that I had seen that I really just wanted to run away from there. I mean, I was there for vacation. I was just walking around trying to enjoy Europe and the good weather. And all I could see and hear is, pigs being treated with cruelty, and cows and sheep and chickens, and they cram them up in such a very mean way, the way they slaughter them, the way they electrocute them. Are human beings allowed to do that? No, we're not. We're not allowed to treat animals with such cruelty because we enjoy eating meat. So I want to say that, I want to say it is time for us to rethink this, revisit this idea that obviously I'm not sitting here saying let's go vegan, don't eat meat. That's not my job. I'm not a nutritionist, neither a scholar on this topic, nor is it that Islam tells us to go vegan. So I, as a religious scholar, as an Islamic scholar, would then tell my audience to go vegan. We're talking about this in a subjective way. And I want to say that what Islam does say. You cannot be cruel to animals. You cannot even be cruel to plants. You cannot be cruel to Mother Earth. Period. And so whenever we see that, we have to be able to voice our opinion. We have to stand against that kind of injustice happening to animals. So that's one that I feel is part of the pros of being a vegan. Number two, I think we're just so used to eating meat that we're not, basically this has and will continue to destroy our health. With so much consumption of meat, at the end of the day, it's proven that it's not good for your health. If you're sitting there eating a burger every day from McDonald's,
high cholesterol, that leads to clogged arteries real quick.
And
especially
that's with the hospital and Iraq, that's the most common thing. People come in after a full breakfast with a clogged artery, and it's because there's just so much oil, and they eat meat. I remember the very first time I went to Iraq, we were in Najaf. Inshallah, we get to go again, and basically it was Fajr, so I went to the Haram, and I wasn't alone. And after the Haram, after sunrise, we left the Haram to go back to the hotel. And for us, it was time to sleep. But when I got out, I saw people barbecuing. And did you just get us water because we were thirsty? We won't be able to drink it for another couple of hours. But thank you. So I got out. I saw people barbecuing. Believe it or not, people were eating kebabs and all those,
liver.
From very early in the morning, and then doing it again for lunch, and then doing it again for dinner. That is not healthy. So to preserve the health of humanity and human beings and your family and your loved ones, you also have to cut down on consuming meat. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says He has put so much tayyibat, that which is good for us to consume and eat on this earth. And let's give a chance to eating a plant-based diet here every while. Let's make sure that we are taking it easy on our digestive system. I think that's something very important. Those are amongst the pros, like you said. If people start cutting down on meat, then there are a lot of pros. And amongst the cons, I feel is that it really won't work for everybody.
Right.
Maybe. I mean, I read an article. Obviously, there's two sides, and you as a layman, you won't really be able to just pick sides that quick. But for example, I've read that it won't do any good to children that are growing up and are in need of different nutritions.
Right.
You know why? I feel like it would even work for them, but I feel like because, like you said, they won't be disciplined enough to sit there and take all those supplements, to do it all, vitamins, to do it on time, then it's not going to be easy.
Right. There's two schools of thought. That's obvious. I think people should be free to choose between if they want to become vegan or not vegan, but I urge everyone to do scientific research, do their own homework, and see if it would fit within their lifestyle. I know me personally, I have to limit my use of animal products because I have hereditary high cholesterol. You and I both do. So along with exercise, I have to keep fit, but I can't just sit there and eat red meat every day, steak, tri-tip, T-bone, ribeye.
Don't get us hungry.
Although it tastes, so we do have to make sure that we limit our consumption. Every time I go to the Islamic Center, like before the corona, obviously, every Friday we would have lunch after Jum'ah prayer. And I would realize that like every time it's either chicken or kebab or, nihari or just meat options all the time. Even if there was a soup, it would be meat broth within the soup. I'm not complaining, I'm just pointing this out. Maybe there would be a vegetarian or vegan member of our community. So how do you think we should go about that, changing the culture of our community centers?
Yeah, we'll discuss that, and then we will further discuss the Islamic opinion on Islamic diets, on veganism, because I think we need to really focus on that for a little bit.
Okay.
But let me share a story with you, and you'll realize how the situation is in most of our communities.
Right.
So many years ago, I was just starting to lecture, travel for a lecture, and I was invited to a community that's predominantly Desi, and it was the month of Ramadan, and I remember I gave a lecture, and then there was iftar. So when we sat for iftar, there was a bowl that looked like it had so much spices.
Yeah.
It just looked like it was gonna burn you from the inside. Hot. Yeah. And a little bit of bread, and people were eating it. I was really hungry, and I didn't have any other option. So I got a glass of water. I was eating a little bit from there, and just drinking water, eating a little bit, and every bite I would take would just burn me from the inside because I really was not used to eating so much spices. Especially on an empty stomach. I mean, you can't even do that now. Nobody can. It's just you have to have really this tolerance for it, right?
Right.
So I remember I was thinking to myself that the guy that brought the food today, or the sponsor, or whoever it was, he must have been really mad at the community members because what is he doing with them? So I went home and I had this upset stomach. They dropped me off at the hotel. I had this upset stomach. I was really,
in bad shape.
I was in bad shape.
Yeah.
Okay. And I was thinking for Sahar, they've packed me up a different type of meal.
Right.
And it's gonna make me feel better. I can actually enjoy what I'm eating, and I opened it and it was the same exact thing. So I was very disappointed. It was very bad. And just to let you know, this happened for 15 days straight.
Wow. Wow.
So I was done by the time I was out. I think I had different ulcers in my stomach and different.
You know what they
things
say
going on.
though? Pain is weakness leaving the body. So
Well, I'm not sure about the type of pain that I was having. I think it's just that. So with that said, what I want to say is our communities literally do not accommodate anybody besides what they feel they desire and they like and they enjoy. You go to a predominantly Iraqi community and all you see is tamanqina.
yeah.
You go to a predominantly Iranian community and there's all you see is cholo kebab.
Oh man.
You go to a Desi community, all you see is nahari or biryani or spicy food or yeah. So I think we have to consider why not bring out a salad?
Yeah.
This Ramadan for 30 days we're not meeting. Nobody's gonna be meeting in Islamic centers and having iftars together. But why not when we do meet? Why not then when we do have majalis? Why not when we do gather? Every literally 10 times, why not just bring out a really healthy, nice salad and let people enjoy that? If you care for their health, this is good.
Right.
If you care for saving animals, this is good. If you care for the way that your cafeteria or your center, or sometimes some people do it in their actual prayer hall,
Mm-hmm.
how it smells,
Yeah.
a salad is always the way to go. So why not do fruits? Why not do salads? I personally, to be honest, everybody knows that the people that listen to all my lectures have definitely come across me saying that I am against food in Islamic centers, period.
Mm-hmm.
Because I feel like they're not restaurants, they're not open buffets.
Right.
People can eat at home. This Ramadan has told the whole world, the Muslim world, especially the ones living in America, that everybody affords a meal at home, a iftar at home, and that everybody enjoys their iftar at home. So let people do their iftar at home and then go to the mosque, or vice versa. Give them a lecture, give them their program, give them half an hour, 45 minutes to get home.
Right.
And enjoy that time with our family. We don't need to spend, as centers, we don't need to spend 30 to 200 grand. I have lectured in small centers that would spend 30 grand, $1,000 a night, which is nothing.
Right.
All the way to $300,000 every evening on
In
food.
1 month.
On food.
Yeah.
So imagine this unbelievable number of money that's spent on food that can go to so many different projects. One is food for the soul,
Mm-hmm.
food for the mind.
Right.
I mean, look at the websites that we have. Look at the books that we have. Look at the online libraries that we have. All those
Need improvement.
need improvement, and they can be supported by cutting down on the cost of food in the mosque. So, I think that the number of vegans in our community has grown to an amount where we need to respect their existence in our community. We need to give them the option of having some vegan meals. I remember when I was flying into the US just this last time, we were on a flight that gave us 3 meals and none of them had a vegetarian option.
Wow.
And it was very disturbing to me. The first time I was like, okay, that's fine. The second time, but the third time I said to the lady, to the stewardess, that imagine, do you not have vegans? Do you not have people that are on, vegetarians?
Yeah.
And she said, well, you have to pre-order that online. But that tells you that, when you're not accommodated, you don't I will never fly on that airplane again. I will never fly. I will never use that, their services again because of that and other incidents that happen. But when people are inconsiderate, they're inconsiderate in everything, right?
Right.
So we have to be considerate to others.
Mm-hmm.
If there are 10 members in our community that are vegan, that are vegetarian, then we have to respect that. And we have to make that food available for them. And if there are people who try to, they're working out all week long, they're trying to stay fit, and then they end up coming to the mosque and the tables are turned now. Everything is going
Unhealthy food.
unhealthy food.
Yeah.
So I think we need to change that. And it's a good point that you brought up. This year nobody is going to be eating mosque food, but
Yeah.
from next, inshallah, Muharram or Ramadan, next Ramadan definitely, If there's going to be food in the mosque, then I hope it's going to be much healthier. Let's make a campaign. Let's learn a lot of things from 2020.
Yeah.
And
no bat soup for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
What is the Islamic perspective on veganism? Because some people wonder, I've heard that if I don't consume meat in 40 days within the allotted period, that's bad. The Prophet has advised us to eat meat. Some people say there's just a lot of misinformation out there,
Mm-hmm.
So I want to get this clear and ask you first and foremost, what is the Islamic perspective on being vegan or even vegetarian for that matter?
Yeah. So, in one word, is it allowed? Yes.
Mm.
There's nothing that stops you. It's not haram not to eat meat or consume meat. It is not haram.
Right.
Now, whether it is unrecommended or makruh, I will talk about that just now.
Okay.
So, a lot of people end up saying, well, it's makruh, it's unrecommended. I want to say, Habibi, you're doing unrecommended things day and night.
Right.
So why is it that you're stuck up on this one,
Veganism, yeah.
Sleeping after Fajr prayers, that's unrecommended. But I'm sure everybody's sleeping after Fajr prayers.
Right.
Very few are the ones that get up and go to work and, become active.
Mm-hmm.
Overeating is makruh, is unrecommended.
Right.
I can list so many things that people do that are unrecommended.
Yeah.
And things that are recommended that people don't do. For example, clipping your nails every Friday.
Mm-hmm.
Getting a haircut every Friday. Trimming your beard every Friday. Things like this. Attending the Friday prayers. And so many things, the prayers that we do before Maghrib and Isha, Dhuhr and Asr, Subuh prayers, what they're called the Nawafil.
Yeah.
Those are all recommended things, but I don't see people, running after them. I don't see people so eager to do them. But when it comes to eating meat, why don't you just say, I love eating meat so much, and not blame religion, and not use religion to make a point. And I feel that both parties are doing it now.
Mm-hmm.
I was just traveling to a specific place, I don't want to mention names, and there was a group of vegans, and they were trying to use religion in order to make it mandatory that every Muslim needs to be vegan. And I spoke a lot about it. I said a lot of good things about it.
Right.
And they were not satisfied until I would say that religion is against consuming any meat. And on the other hand, I feel like people that love meat,
Mm-hmm.
maybe restaurant owners, they will do whatever they can in order to make it seem like it is religiously not allowed. Let's put that aside, because I think that's really not the case.
Mm-hmm.
We have a hadith. Every Muslim goes around saying this hadith that, you should eat meat every 40 days. So I looked up those hadiths. As far as their chain, as far as the validity, it's really not the best of validities.
Okay.
The best of chain of narrators. And you know what the hadith says? The primary one says, if you do not, and obviously when you're fasting, you really cannot misquote the Quran or the Prophet or the Imam. So you should know that once we say those hadiths, we are, if we are not accurate in exact terms,
right,
we're just trying to
paraphrase
them
yes,
to you, so you understand the gist of it. So the hadith says, "Man lam ya'kul al-lahm 40 yawman sa'a khuluquh." Whoever does not eat meat for 40 days will become angry, agitated in the way they behave.
Moody, maybe.
They'll become moody. That's what I saw, really. I saw other hadiths that really they were outside the madhab of Ahlul Bayt. And to be honest with you, they're definitely bogus. They're definitely inaccurate. I'll give you one example, and and I'm honestly not trying to crack a joke, but this is a hadith that's very popular in the books of other Muslims, with all due respect to obviously every Muslim, but I just want to make it a point that, you know, a hadith that's used to praise meat and consuming meat is a hadith by the Prophet that says, obviously it's not a hadith, but it's placed in the books, it's a lie, it's a scam, it's a fabrication, that says, I like Aisha, the Prophet said, I like Aisha more than my wives, just like I like eating meat more than the rest of the foods.
Wow.
You know, knowing the Prophet, the way he spoke, the way he referred to his wives, his family, he's not going to compare.
Something very shallow.
Very shallow, very shallow. But because people, I guess, were trying to uplift her status amongst the obese, they were saying that, oh, the Prophet said this. So, honestly, I feel like, you know, a lot of people say maybe some of the followers of the Ahlul Bayt disrespect the wives of the Prophet and what have you, but to be honest with you, I feel that there is more disrespect about certain wives of the Prophet and his family, for matter of fact, and the Prophet himself, and the books of the, you know, those who are outside the madhab of Ahlul Bayt. And I don't say that in a mean way. I feel like this is a mean hadith. This is something that should not have been said.
Right.
Or for example, the hadiths that speak of the Prophet, for example, sitting down in Aisha's home and looking at belly dancers on the day of Eid. You know, obviously we know the Prophet would never do that. So before you bring up the fact that, you know, why you're disrespecting the wives of the Prophet or the companions of the Prophet, here's the Prophet himself being disrespected. Anyways, this is not our topic. I don't want to spend more time on it.
It's just to illustrate some hadiths are obviously completely bogus.
Fabricated. Yeah. I'm not going to, you know, even consider them for a second, let alone, you know, make a religious verdict upon them. So, and then we have other hadiths, like about lentils. We have many hadiths that talk about lentils. We have many hadiths that talk about... So if we were to bring out other hadiths, you know, veganism or a plant-based diet can also have so many hadiths to their advantage as well. So to sum it up, I would say the following. Islam is not against you being a vegan. But Islam is against you turning your stomachs into graveyards of animals. We have a hadith like, do not turn your stomachs into graveyards of animals. Do not disturb animals when you don't need to. Hunting in Islam for the sake of pleasure is haram. You can't just go around killing animals. So, Islam always calls for moderation. If you look at the Quran, and you look at the Prophet, and you look at the Imams, and you look at the scholars that follow the footsteps of the great examples of the Prophet and his Ahlul Bayt, you find that they are moderate in the way they behave. You know, they're not eating meat every day, but they're not cutting meat out of their diet completely. That's how the Imams were. You know, a lot of people are asking us, talk about the diet of the Imams, talk about the Ahlul Bayt, how they ate. So, obviously they weren't vegan, but they weren't eating meat 24/7.
Definitely.
They were eating it as much as they needed, their body needed it, you know? And for example, we have hadiths that the Imam tells certain people to eat a lot of lemon. We have a lot of hadiths that tell people to eat lentils. We have hadiths that... So we have hadiths that talk about different kinds of food. We can't just focus on the ones that say, do not eat meat or eat meat. That is wrong. That is not a very academic way of researching this topic. So I think moderation is the best way. I was thinking just before the show that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when in the Quran He discusses the food, the heavenly foods. So He says, وَلَحْمِ طَيْرٍ مِمَّا يَشْتَهُونَ. Allah says, and the people of paradise will receive bird meat, basically from all kinds of food that they desire, and He gives the Quran gives the example of bird meat. That is something that came to my mind that tells you that Islam is not against consuming animals.
Right.
And it allows us to eat animals and consume animals. Obviously, there was no questions about that, but I'm just making a point. There's also a hadith, a very famous hadith that's mentioned in the books of the Muslims, all the Muslims, that the Prophet once received a tayr al-mashwi, the fried bird. If anybody is listening to this, can search this online, hadith al-tayr al-mashwi, the hadith of the fried bird, that the Prophet was at home, a person fried a bird, and they took it to the Prophet. So the Prophet said, "O Allah, send me the most beloved of your creation, of your servants, of those who worship you, to join me in this meal."
Wow.
Which tells you that the Prophet was enjoying it.
Right.
And he wanted the most beloved person after him to also enjoy it with him. And the hadith says that Imam Ali came and joined Rasulullah in this meal. The hadith is long, I don't want to take time in explaining the hadith, but I want to say that the Prophet enjoyed that meal.
Right.
However, a lot of vegans, Muslim vegans, Shi'i vegans will tell you, Imam Ali obviously was known to be a vegan. He was eating bread. He was not eating meat.
Right.
In fact, he avoided meat. That is not because he wanted to be vegan. That is because Imam Ali clearly stated why he was taking up that lifestyle.
That was after he became Amir al-Mu'mineen, right?
He was always Amir al-Mu'mineen. That's because
the-
after he became the physical Khalifa, after
Yes.
people gave him allegiance to
Right.
rule the Muslim world,
Right.
Imam Ali announced, "I will live as the most humble of you."
Right.
And
The
the poorest of you. And he knew that there's going to be people who cannot afford meat. So he lived like that. He
Right.
lived like them. He lived like the poorest of people. He decided to. Us, and we are.
Yeah, let us know in the live chat if the stream is going okay. Is our connection good, or can anyone hear us?
Looks like there's a huge delay. Unless there's something wrong with my internet here.
Is it working there?
Okay, why don't we just go ahead and continue to, why don't you just go ahead and introduce the questions,
so
please?
there was a few questions. One was about lentils. So I think someone asked that lentils have the same protein as meat does. So that is true. I did research, scientific research. I found an article by Harvard that spoke about lentils and meat. So basically, lentils can offer you the same protein as meat. You might have to eat a larger serving of lentils, but what lentils lack are things like calcium, iron, vitamin B6, vitamin B3, and vitamin B12. However, lentils will not give you cholesterol, and they do not have saturated fat. The fat within them is polyunsaturated, which will then break down within your body. The fat lipids break down in your body easier. They don't bind as much. So there's lower calories basically.
Okay. I feel like we answered a lot of the questions.
Yeah.
Like, for example, there's a question that said, how can God, the merciful, or the religion of peace allow the slaughter of animals? I feel like we talked about that. We talked about the inhumane way of treating animals. We talked about the fact that we can only consume them as much as we need.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the day, there's no difference between animals or plants. You know, we're
Right.
consuming what's on earth as much as we need, and we have been permitted to do that. In fact, let me say this. Why is it that we have to say Bismillah when we slaughter an animal? Why is it that, you know, Islamic food or kosher food requires that the name of God is mentioned at the time of the slaughter? It's because we remind ourselves that we have been given permission to consume those animals and those sacrifices for ourselves, for as much as we need, and that's it. You know, and that is why halal meat, one of the reasons, one of the conditions of having halal meat is having to say the word of God, the name of God. Why? Because we remind ourselves that He is the one that gave us permission. And we take that as, a permission from Allah, not something that we take for granted, that, okay, now that you've permitted me, it's like, you know, if I tell you, you know, you can use my car whatever you want, but now you're not going to drive your car, you're going to drive my car and put miles on it every day. You know, that's just what I meant when I gave you that permission, is use it as much as you need, when you need, but don't abuse that permission. And I keep on looking forward to the topics that we're going to introduce, and keep on doing what you're doing. Leave your comments. We will look at them, and we will answer you, inshallah, in the next shows. And I would like to really thank some of the accounts that have really done an amazing job in showing us support. Probably in the tens, if not hundreds. Some of them are very influential accounts that have been reposting the Quran series in the month of Ramadan, this show and other shows. I pray for them and I thank them. And I thank whoever else is helping us out in this endeavor. May Allah bless you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.